Hello friends! On today's episode, I want to introduce all of you to a very important tool called SoberLink, which can play a significant role in divorce cases that involve children or a time-sharing schedule, especially when there are issues related to either alcohol consumption and or alcohol abuse. This SoberLink device can help protect your children and ensure a safe co-parenting environment. So on today's episode, we are thrilled to announce that as our guest, we had Chris Beck, Vice President of Business Development for SoberLink on the family court side. About Chris, he's a very genuine and thoughtful person. You will see throughout our interview with Chris that he really cares about the well-being of children that are going through the divorce process and has dedicated a great deal of his life to making sure that children are protected in divorce cases. Welcome back to the Divorce Broadcast. My name is Manny Segarra, coming to you from Miami, Florida. All right, before we cut to the clip of our compelling interview with Chris Beck, I thought it may be a good idea to give a brief explanation of what SoberLink is. For those of you who may not have heard of SoberLink, SoberLink is a portable wireless breathalyzer device that allows individuals to monitor and document their alcohol consumption. These SoberLink devices provide real-time results and accountability, and in turn offer many benefits, which include the following: child safety, reduced conflict between the parties, and legal protection because of how easy or readily available these records are and are able to be introduced in the court. So, without further delay, it is our privilege and honor to have Chris Beck, Vice President of Business Development at SoberLink on the Divorce Broadcast. Check it out now. Welcome, Chris.
Thank you for having me on your show. I look forward to the conversation.
I know that Rich and I are super excited to have you on board, and also one of our friends of the show. We always drag her into the show. Our superstar attorney from Orlando, Florida, Rich Colon-Morales. Welcome back, Rich. How are you?
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me. Good. Busy. Work never ends.
I hear you. I'm sure we both can hear you. All right, Chris. So before we get started, a little bit about you. Where exactly are you located right now, my friend?
So yes, I'm in almost Charlotte area of North Carolina, just north of Charlotte, in a town called Mooresville. They call it Race City, USA, because that's where a lot of the NASCAR guys are and gals. Yeah, it's an exciting place to be. I'm originally from California, so a little bit of a move from what I'm used to, but starting to love it here.
That sounds awesome. I know that North Carolina has some great barbecue. My son went to college out there, so I know I've tried it out there. Do you have a go-to place for your neck of the woods?
So the barbecue out here is a little more vinegar enriched than traditional barbecue you would see in Texas. So I'm not a big fan. Don't tell too many people. I might get in trouble for that.
The North Carolina contingent of the show just tuned out momentarily. But that's okay, Chris. I'm sure that you're going to make it up by telling us all about SoberLink. Can you give everybody the minute elevator pitch as to what SoberLink?
Yeah, so what we do is we have a technology that actually documents sobriety for those individuals who have been accused of abusing alcohol during their parenting time. And that's where the family law part of our business model takes place. So, if you have a parent that you think is parenting unsafely with your child, that's where SoberLink would come into play. We're probably in 50 states right now, and in Canada, Australia, and Europe. It's amazing, kind of the breadth and reach of our product these days.
All right, it sounds really exciting. We're excited to have you on. And before I move on with you, Rich Colon-Morales, can you tell everybody or remind everybody who you are? Because I know they've seen you a lot on this channel. And give us a brief description of you've run into SoberLink on your cases and in what context.
Yes. So I'm an associate attorney at Segarra & Associates. I've been doing family law for quite some time now. I feel like I've aged a couple, 10 years doing it.
But no way. You can never tell.
At least. But yes, SoberLink has been, instrumental when, it's funny because Chris mentioned parents have been accused. We always say it's alleged until, there's a positive test result, maybe, or a negative one on a good note. But it's been great because it allows both parents to feel a little bit more comfortable, and obviously it starts to build a trust as well, especially when there is a condition of a parent that does abuse it. And it also allows us to do our job and be able to create a step-by-step plan to either reunify a parent with a child. So it's worked really well in the past.
All right. Well, we appreciate you being on here. I originally came from the point of view that it had to do with parents who were accused of drinking alcohol, but Chris, he actually changed my perspective on it. So we're going to get into it a little bit now. Chris, why don't you tell us a little bit about the genesis of SoberLink? Where did the idea come from?
Sure. So the founder of the company actually was in the monitoring business as kind of a family business and did it on a very wide scale where back in the day, there would be call centers where you would call in and you would have to test whatever it may be. And my founder said, hey, there's got to be a better way to do this now that we have things called cell phones. And so just kind of thought about the technology. And here we are today with a device we call SoberLink. You know, it started with a breathalyzer that we combined it with an old cell phone called the BlackBerry. I'm not sure if too many of the listeners here remember what a BlackBerry was, but
I unfortunately, Chris, do.
How we started, yes.
It's a little faint for me. It's
Right?
faint. It's faint.
That's okay.
The best
but that,
keyboard in the business, Rich.
Yes.
The best keyboard in the business, yes.
to this day. So you had indicated to me previously that this occurred around the early 2000s is kind of when it started, right?
That is correct. So in 2011 is when the first product was launched. In about 2016 is when we really made a focus on family law. And that's pretty much our biggest market now.
All right, so we'll get into that in one quick second, because one of the things that comes to my mind is obviously I've had, unfortunately, friends and family members who've had to have that device hooked up to their car. Is that where the inspiration comes? Do you know what I'm talking about? You read just the situation, and it's messed up.
Yeah.
But I have one in particular. He pretty much for a decade didn't have his license, and whenever I would see him, he'd have to blow into this device in his car in order to start the car. Is that kind of where this came from?
Well, those are very popular. Those are called ignition interlock devices. And
Okay.
DUI cases now, those are kind of the industry standard, been mandated in some states and counties. Yeah.
Interesting stuff. All right. So where was the first foothold in terms of the different states that SoberLink began to kind of become more popular in?
Yeah, so it really goes back to the criminal side of the business that they had a lot of adoption in California, Texas, Illinois, and Colorado. That's kind of where the business really spearheaded. And so in family law, that's where we saw some of our business start to swell. And then from there, we were able to take it on the road. And, you know, now myself, I moved from California all the way over to the East Coast to take care of sales over on this side and educate professionals like yourself about what we do.
That's wonderful. We're so happy to have you on. So let's talk about the mission statement, because I looked and it said that SoberLink was founded with the mission of improving lives. And that's kind of where it changed my perspective. Can you get into a little bit more about that?
Yeah, it's really about that, because we want to make sure that we represent both sides of the case, because, you know, you could have someone that you're representing that is having the issue or that poor relationship with alcohol. And you want to make sure you give them the best technology possible so that they can go forward in their parenting and be able to have access with their kiddos. But then on the other side of the case, you want that other parent to say, hey, I feel better because of this technology. I have peace of mind that my kiddos are safe with my ex, even though there was a problem. Now I know that they're testing compliant and I know they're with a sober parent, and that brings me some peace. So I think we're improving lives of individuals that are going through the situation. And for that, you know, I think it drives us to continue to innovate and make sure our product is that top shelf with the best technology out there.
Yeah, you're right. And that's what I was saying before. In the beginning, I was like, it's for the cases in which we have to show that they've been drinking or not. You saw how it's also on the other side. And what did you think about that?
Yeah, no, it's definitely eye-opening, you know, especially when we're an attorney, you know, we're going to sometimes be representing one side or the other. So it gives that trust, as I was mentioning earlier, and the opportunity to, you know, give some good parenting time with the kids and develop that.
You know, and I want to just elaborate a little bit more. I feel like, you know, we give that parent the chance to really empower themselves to prove their sobriety, and it becomes a tool instead of something that is more penal. You were mentioning that ignition interlock system. I mean, that thing is very penal when you get in to start your car. That's a tough thing that you have to do each and every time, where we're trying to give that individual the power to prove their sobriety, to earn that trust back and really get back to that relationship they had with their family, the kids.
I'm really loving the positivity. I like that. I
Yeah.
think it's a great thing because, you know, it
Good.
takes a village to raise children. And I think if the parents can, they should be involved. All
Yeah.
right. So I also noticed that there are some areas like addiction recovery, workplace compliance, and then family law. Tell us about what time did you indicate that you kind of focused only on the family law aspect of it, Chris?
Yeah, so we sold our criminal side of the business back in about, I think it's around 2016. I could be a little wrong on that date. After that, we really put an emphasis on family law, making sure that we had the right technology to give to these individuals who are struggling in that co-parenting dynamic. And then the other markets that we still participate in is in treatment. We are the continued care arm for a lot of treatment facilities across the country, and then also in workplace compliance, such as pilots and physicians that they use our technology to actually keep their license within their particular industry.
Very impressive. Now, as we focus back on the family law side of it, let's talk a little bit about the actual physical device, because I saw that you gave us a preview, and I know that everyone is going to be tuning into this part in particular.
So we offer two different devices. All right. I want to make that very clear. We offer a cellular device and a Bluetooth device, which we call Connect. The cellular device is what we call our plug and play device. So it doesn't require a smartphone or BlackBerry. No, it doesn't require any type of device to submit a test. You just turn it on, blow into the device. Again, it uses facial recognition software to confirm identity. We haven't quite got to there yet, but it does that through this camera that's in the very top portion.
That's pretty cool.
And then it sends the results via the cell chip that's inside to anyone that's part of the monitoring agreement. So that could be the other co-parent, it could be attorneys that are involved, maybe it's a guardian ad litem, but anyone that needs to see the results to make sure that that parent is staying on that path of sobriety. So our second device is our Bluetooth device. Now this does require you to pair it with an app on your smartphone, whether it be iPhone or Android. We support both. The app is free in the stores. What you do is you connect it, and then exactly the same way you would turn it on, pair it, blow into the device. It uses facial recognition software, confirm identity, and then it sends the results via Bluetooth to the smartphone, and then the smartphone sends it to our secure web portals, where then we analyze the data and then send it to everyone that's part of the monitoring agreement. And that would be identity confirmation and the BAC results.
That is really cool. And how big is the device?
Yeah, so I like to say it's I have a iPhone mini 14. I'm probably one of the last users of that model, but it's about two of those smacked together is pretty much the size of our technology.
That is awesome. I'm one of the few Android users, so it's probably about the size of my Android if I had to guess. That's awesome.
All the cell phones are getting so big now. It's hard to find.
Yeah. I actually have a mini too, Chris. So I'm right there with you. I have small hands. I can't do the big one.
Nice.
Kindred spirits. So is there one that's more popular right now than the other, Chris?
Yeah, so nowadays the Bluetooth is actually more popular. Most people are pretty attuned to pairing a technology to their smartphones, plus it's a little bit less expensive. So that's also a little bit of a teaser to make it more popular. The main difference with the cellular device is that this one actually stores tests. So we sell this one for people more where maybe they're in rural areas, or they go out fishing if they're in Miami area and they get out of cell phone range. It will store up to 65 tests. And then once you get back into cell range, then it will download all of those tests and have them all individually time-stamped of when the tests were taken. So that is really the advantage of having the cellular device. But yeah, this one is the most popular. It's about 65% of our sales. That's right. Yeah.
That's really cool. So talk to us a little bit about if you were to give your clients like a couple tips on what not to do to the device to make sure that it works properly. Like don't mess with the little glow stick too much, or whatever that portion of the device is called, like how not to mess with it so that you don't get in trouble.
Sure. So this is the technology. I mean, there's two pieces to it. Don't lose these pieces. I would say that is probably one thing that I would say, it does come with a case that you can put it into, so you can always store it. The other thing that I would say, and it's not really related to the device, but remove anything that might have alcohol in it that's part of your daily routine. Like some people use Listerine. Listerine has alcohol in it. And if you blow into a breathalyzer after rinsing your mouth with Listerine, it will blow a positive. Now, what's really unique about the SoberLink system is that we have a retest cycle. And I think this is something to touch upon now that I mentioned Listerine. The retest cycle is actually a test that confirms the initial positive. And that's anytime someone has an initial positive, we demand a retest in 15 minutes. So what happens is our device will lock out for 15 minutes, not allow a test to be taken. And after 15 minutes, you're able to take a test. And then if the test is confirmed, then all the alerts go out to those individuals who are part of the monitoring agreement to notify them that a positive test has been taken. But if the test, like let's say, if it was Listerine, that mouth contamination, which we call incidental exposure to alcohol, would have dissipated in 2 to 3 minutes. So when I take the retest, it will be compliant. And then that whole event will be seen as a compliant test. And then that's the way with, a lot of people in the industry back in the day would say, well, what about false positives? What do we do about that? And I want to say that it's called incidental exposures to alcohol, but with our retest cycle, we've really eliminated a lot of that noise.
That is so fascinating. That's so fascinating.
That's pretty cool. But also, everybody should be smart enough. Don't be
Yes.
subject to incidental exposure.
Yeah, no, that's true. So I would just make sure that they follow the instructions on how to do the retest cycle. So that's the third tip, I guess, because that's there to protect the client that's submitting the test as well.
And I really like the facial recognition part. So you can't get 15 minutes later somebody else to blow in the device for you. All right, great. So why should prospective clients who are in these type of custody issues that involve alcohol abuse trust the SoberLink device, Chris?
Well, I would say that it's really the top shelf technology that's offered today. Everything from our facial recognition software that we use to our internal tamper detection technology. I didn't mention that there are sensors inside this device that capture fake air. So someone might try and use maybe an air canister to blow into the device.
No way.
Technology inside that will actually know if it's something that is fake air versus that air that is blown from your lungs.
Wow.
The technology
That's
here
interesting.
is really, really good. And our engineers have spent a lot of time continuing to develop the technology and continuing to improve it so that that you're getting the best technology out there. But it's also, I like to say, it's the least intrusive. I mean, you can use this in your daily lives. And that's really what is exciting about it to me, because I see people walking around with like ankle bracelets, like the Lindsay Lohan ankle bracelet, right? Where it's a little more penal than what this is. This is something that you can use very discreetly. You can keep it with you. You don't have to have your child see you using this. And I think that's important. You can use it, in the bathroom, behind a tree, when you're at the park, whatever it may be. It doesn't have to be something that your child sees, or something in your car like an ignition interlock where they see you blowing into this big giant soda can looking thing. So the discreetness of it as well is very important.
I think that's wonderful. What about is the alert system? Is it an instant alert system? Is that something that is reliable as well?
Yeah, we have a couple different plans that we offer within our programs, and we'll probably get to that in a little bit. But the plans are really about how you get those results. And you can get those results through email or text message. So the delivery of those results back to you are very reliable.
That's awesome. And then we'll also get into a little bit about the fact that in court, the results and the updates and the alerts are something that I know your company's worked really hard on in streamlining, so they're useful in court.
That's right. So we deliver a PDF document that can be certified by our custodian of records and submitted into court, asked by a family law professional like yourself.
That makes my job easy.
Contact me and I can get you those things.
Rich's ears perked up when we skipped the predicates for authentication. So when it comes to family court, I know that you had mentioned that the philosophy is to improve the relationship between the parents, to keep the kids safe, which is huge, and to give the parents who are accused of alcohol abuse a shot at redemption and getting their kids back, right?
Yes. I mean, I think that you have to think about the best interest of the child, and that what every judge is looking at when they see these cases. I would say that keeping that parent, even though they're struggling with alcohol use disorder in some of these cases, to take a child away is sometimes more damaging than let's get them on a technology and maybe even a treatment program that can monitor their sobriety and allow them to have access to their kiddos and be part of that child's development going forward, even with the separation that has happened.
You're almost like a neutral observer as to what's happening. I think that's really great.
Yeah, we try our best. Yes, absolutely.
All right. So we had also mentioned previously that you did get some pub in the scientific community.
That
was pretty cool. Why don't you tell the viewers about that?
We did, yeah. So we did a consensus paper that ended up being published. We brought together 9 of some of the top addiction professionals in the industry, and they had to understand our technology a little bit better, because typically the way that alcohol monitoring was done was that you would go down to a lab, do a urinalysis, and then you would get the results back about how much you've been drinking in the last 3 days. So this technology was new, and we needed to bring people together to showcase how it should be be properly used. And the paper ended up getting published in the Journal of Addiction Medicine in 2016. And it talked about test frequency. It talked about the duration that the monitoring should take place. And it also talked about like why now with new technology, we should be testing on a schedule instead of it being randomized, because you hear that a lot in alcohol monitoring. All these great things came out of this paper.
That's really cool. We'll make sure to put a link on this video to that journal. I think that'd be really interesting for people to see. All right, so you had just mentioned before we talked about that, the different programs that the company offers. Can you tell our listeners or our viewers a little bit about the different programs that are offered by SoberLink?
Yeah, we try and keep it real simple. We offer 2 different programs. We offer a level 1 that is about testing around parenting time only. So it's limited to 20 testing days in a calendar month, but the idea is to test before pickup or before the exchange of the kiddos, and then maybe 2 or 3 times during, and then once after drop off. So you have documented sobriety during the entire parenting time period. If there is an overnight in that parenting time, we ask that you test before bedtime and then once when you wake up, but don't exceed a 10-hour gap in between those 2 tests. Okay. Our level 2 is daily testing. Now, this is more of our treatment model, but very popular in the family law side. Sometimes when someone might have primary custody of the kiddos, they're testing 7 days a week on a schedule, typically 2 to 3 times per day. We also suggest 2 hours of testing windows. So 5 a.m. test, that person who is taking the test would have until 7 a.m. to actually complete that test and still be compliant.
Okay. Iraj, can you provide some insight as to, in your experience, how are the court orders set up so that we can kind of comport with the sufficiency of the testing so that we know that everyone is acting above board and that the kids are safe?
Yeah, what's interesting, because as I'm hearing Chris talk, I'm like notating down. I'm like, wow, I need to start including this and considering this with, it's very specific, because a lot of times, when we start having those conversations with an opposing counsel, because one of the clients is going to start SoberLink, we've never in the past have had to really articulate the time of testing. Often we've done like once a day or right before time sharing is about to start, but sometimes you don't consider after or overnight because there's a lot of time that can pass by. So it's interesting in doing that, but also cooperation from parent and the co-parent, because I did want to ask Chris as well as the process, because once we have a court order that says that there's going to be a parent that's going to participate with SoberLink, right? A lot of times the court order will have a required timeline. Within 10 days, they shall do X thing in order to initiate the process. And sometimes there's a little bit of a delay because, we haven't been privy to what the actual process is or, what it takes to start.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. That process of startup, I get people calling me and saying, okay, we have 2 days left. How do I get this done? And I'm like, oh no.
You should have called me 2 weeks ago.
Right? Yeah. No, but we can get it done quickly. With that said, the fastest that we can turn something around is that we can overnight the device, and the monitoring agreements can be signed by both the concerned party and the monitoring client within that time frame. So you could get, in best case scenario, the next day get up and running, but most typically we see it 4 to 5 days, business days.
Okay. Well, that's good to know.
That it takes for setup.
Okay, so as a pro tip, everyone watching, Chris would like, if possible, a couple of days. They can accommodate. They're very accommodating company.
It just gets costly for that shipping if you need to
expedite. Yeah.
And then in terms of the amount of testing, is there like a rule of thumb that you would have a preference that the practitioner follow, or is that something that's case specific that you would like them to reach out to you?
That's a great question. And I would just go back to that paper that was published in the Journal of Addiction Medicine, where it actually suggests that you use for the frequency, you could use it for up to a year. That's when you see some cognitive behavioral change from the individual with compliant behavior. And then when it comes to frequency, they do recommend 2 to 3 tests, and even 4 in some of those extreme cases.
That's wonderful. Understood. And in terms of if a practitioner, if a lawyer or one of the clients wants to reach out to your company, is there a department that addresses this particular issue in terms of how to set up the actual court order or the plan, or what is best for their particular case?
Yeah, so I would say that you can either reach out to me, Chris Beck, that's my name. So you can reach out to me at cbeck@soberlink.com. And we also have a support line if you don't want to reach out to me individually because maybe you just didn't like my interview here. But,
I doubt that. I doubt that.
but just in case you don't want to,
Yeah.
you can email familylaw@soberlink.com and we will get right back to any questions that you may have.
That's really awesome that you're so responsive and that you personally take ownership with it, Chris. So we
Yeah.
appreciate that. All right. So in terms of who gets the test results, you had indicated previously that for sure the device user and the co-parent, but can you give us an idea at least who gets those results and how they may be sent to the people that receive them?
Yeah, so again, the co-parent is typically who we call the concerned party, right? And they're the one, and that I always call it the designated concerned party, because that's a person who is going to make sure that if there's any changes to the monitoring agreement, they also have to sign off on it. So when you have a court order that says they have to test 3 times a day, and then the monitor client says, well, SoberLink, I want to only test 2 times a day, that concerned party has to sign off on that for that change to happen. And that's really
Right.
important to note because a lot of attorneys get a little worried that the program might change and not follow the court order that has been put into place or the parenting plan that has been put in place. So be very careful about who is the designated concerned party. That's a really important position. But I always recommend that attorneys be part of the monitoring agreement. They're called additional contacts, and those additional contacts can get weekly and monthly reports via email. And again, it's that PDF type format where it will give you a summary up top of every single test that client has taken, along with a month-by-month preview of every test that has been taken, time-stamped. And then we also color code it like a stop sign. Red is non-compliant, green is compliant, and yellow is missed. So we try and make it as easy as possible, but it was fun developing. So yeah, it's been a great hit with the attorneys because they can just look at it quickly and say, oh, okay, I know where the
Good. We're not good.
At the risk of taking away a question from you, Reg, what about a certificate of authenticity? Is that something that may be possible with these reports?
Yes, absolutely. You can email our compliance team. We have a great compliance team, very responsive. They ask for 48 hours, but they typically turn it around in 24. But you can email them at compliance@soberlink.com. And then if you need these records authenticated, our custodial records would then send the records with a signed affidavit so that they can be administered.
I'm writing it all down. I got my pen. I'm like, this is great. This is juicy stuff.
How is that helpful for you, Rich, when the certificate of authenticity is attached? And for those that may be wondering what I'm talking about, why don't you explain that to them?
Yes, yes. So a lot of times when you are getting prepared for a court hearing, right, there's certain authentication questions that I will need to ask a third party in order to be able to introduce a document into evidence, right? And by way of an example of SoberLink, if we have a report from SoberLink, ideally it's a document that was prepared by somebody that is not a party to the suit. So essentially not mom or dad, the concerned party or the alleged parent can testify as to the authenticity of that report, basically telling the judge, this document says what it says it is, and it's true, and there's no doubt about it, right? So
It makes it so much easier.
It does. It streamlines the process because when I get a certificate signed indicating that, you know, it was prepared at the time that it was created by X person, it's certified, you know, it does minimize the time in court, and it's something that's easily acceptable and approved by the court as well. So when I show it on the screen or show it in court, it's much, much easier.
That's awesome. So let's keep going with the legalities because this is where we're going to shine.
Yeah.
What about the agreement, Chris? Does SoberLink require a copy of the court order appointing SoberLink as a participant in the case?
So that is a great question. And the answer is no. We do not require any court orders or parenting plans to be submitted. All we require is a monitoring agreement that's signed between the monitor client and the concerned party. And that really deals with expectations of what the monitoring program is going to detail and what is the testing protocol, what you should stay away from, all these things, so that everyone's up front with exactly what they should know prior to getting started with our technology and our system.
In the event that a practitioner may need a sample court order or some language, is that something they can reach out to your company to try to get as well?
Absolutely. So we do have a really good resource page online where we have family law professionals at the top navigation. And then in that, we have many different resources that you can look at. And one of those would be some samples of agreements to help people produce those to their liking. Yeah.
Really cool.
Cool.
We're gonna have to put that link in there as well.
Yeah.
What about testimony in court? Has there ever been an instance in which either yourself or some of your team has had to come and testify in court?
You're absolutely right. You know, to Rich's point a little bit ago, is that some judges are okay with some records that have been authenticated. If not, they ask that we come in and testify on behalf of the records that have been put forward. And we do that. There is a fee for that. But if there ever is a case where the judge is asking about the technology being used in the case and wants more education, we do that for free. So that would be where I come in and telephonically just kind of educate the parties about what our technology can do and how it can help both sides.
That's really cool. Can you give the audience an idea more or less how many requests that you get either per month or year to date for authenticated records?
Yeah, so I always look at this data and I am shocked. In the last 12 months, we have had over 350 requests to have records authenticated.
That's a lot.
So it's a lot, and it's a testament to our staff, the way that they're able to turn and burn these things and make sure that, you know, they get to everyone that has requests. You know, they're doing testimonies on top of that. I think in the last 12 months, we've done over 40 testimonies across the country. So they stay busy.
It's a good thing. It's a good thing.
I think it is too. Yeah.
100%. So this kind of leads into the next topic, which is what about the reception from the judicial community? How has that been, at least in your experience, Chris?
Yeah, so I think the judiciary loves to be educated on new technology. You know, the one thing that they always say is we can't recommend SoberLink by name. That's not something that we will do. We are a for-profit, you know, we're not a charity. So, I mean, they feel like they might be skewing it if they do mention us by name. But if the attorneys mention us, then agree to use our technology, then so be it. They'll put it in an order and the judge would sign. So they've been very receptive. I think all of the training that I've done, everyone's asked great questions similar to what we have had here today. And it's really nice because a lot of times the judiciary finds themselves as like that last resort for that child. They're like the last step where keeping that kiddo safe and also make sure they have the best interest of the child always at the forefront.
That's really paramount. And have you found yourself going to other legal organizations? I know I saw you at the Florida Family Law Conference. You made a cameo there. What about other organizations like that?
Yeah, we do. We go all over the country. You know, we do a lot of sponsorships with INSA courts to the AFCC to the AMML. Sorry.
The American Association of Matrimonial Lawyers.
AAML, sorry.
Yes.
But yes, we have great sponsorships with a lot of the big associations within family law. So we're able to participate in their conferences and their national conferences, and then also with the state CLE bars. And it's been a lot of travel for me and, you know, my partners that do this also, but very enjoyable. The people we meet are just terrific. And
that's really cool. All right. So before we wrap up, Irech, do you have any additional questions for Chris? I think answered them all. I mean,
yeah, I think we covered everything. I've learned new stuff too. So, you know, I'm really happy that there is a product like this on the market.
The only two other things that I would ask Chris is kind of give us a day in the life of, like, you know, what day to day, like what are some of the things that you do? Because I'm sure the crowd is interested in knowing what keeps you busy, my friend.
Yeah. So typically I wake up at 5 a.m.
Oh gosh.
every morning and get my 5 kids ready for school. So,
awesome.
You know, that's really the difficulty of my day. Once I get them on the bus at 6:40, then I can sit down and have a cup of coffee, and then I get right into my SoberLink business. And a lot of times that means going to the airport and flying in and flying back, you know, same day type travel.
Wow.
Some of the CLEs that I do or some of the speaking engagements that I do. Yeah.
That's really cool. I know that we are so grateful to have had you on and appreciate and cherish your time with us, my friend. One last topic that I'm going to ask, and then, you know, Irech, if you have anything else you might want to ask. Well, I'll ask you Irech a question. What is the most impressive part of SoberLink and or Chris that you've heard today, or something that might have surprised you?
Yeah. I think the most would be the advanced technology of the product itself. It means a lot and it goes very far when it's something that you can trust, right? Especially when it involves kids. So I think that was the most impressive part, because I thought you would just blow into the thingy and that was it, and like there was no, proofs and balances, so it was very, very insightful to see how that works.
Yeah, I think during one of our little breaks, we mentioned how you can't have your significant other blow in the device for you if you fail the first time.
Yeah.
It doesn't work that way.
Right.
So don't be slick, people. Don't be slick. And I guess the final part, and I think this is really important, is there any, without giving away the secret sauce, because we know that you guys are always in production for new and improved stuff, but is there anything you can tell us about the future of the company that you kind of have your eyes on in terms of either improvement or some other ventures that might be out there for SoberLink?
I hate to say there's really nothing happening at the moment, but with that said, we're always looking for ways that we can expand. Right now we're doing monitoring for alcohol only, but we're looking at universities that are doing things with THC, for instance, and other drugs that maybe we can bring into our little umbrella, right? Yes. And make it all kind of come together. But those are the things we're looking for and opportunities there. But we stay, in our lane right now and make sure that we're the best alcohol monitoring company that a family law professional can rely on.
Well, from what we see, I think you may just be my friend. So congrats on everything that your company has accomplished. Why don't you tell the viewers a little bit about your YouTube channel, which I have recently followed?
Yeah, so we get a lot of feedback through testimonials from family law professionals and people who have been on the technology, not only in family law, but also from the treatment standpoint, and bring all their stories together. We call them sober stories, and I think it's really neat to see those successes, and I think it drives a lot of the individuals who work at SoberLink to continue to make sure that we offer the best technology, because you see how it changes their lives, and that's what's powerful.
I found some of those testimonials very empowering. It's one of those things, it's very satisfying to see how it's influenced their lives. So
Yeah.
really good stuff. This time for sure, we're going to let you
Okay.
go. All right. So if any of you think that you would find this information useful, please look us up at www.segarralawfirm.com. You also can check out SoberLink if you look up their channel on YouTube as well. We have offices in Miami and Orlando, Florida, where our favorite attorney, Irach Colon Morales, is currently situated. Please do us a favor and like this video, subscribe to the Divorce Broadcast, and we will see you all soon. We are so grateful, Chris. Thank you for joining us on this episode today, and we'll see you again soon. Take care.